Welcome back to Solo Chat, the gathering for marketing, tech experts, and leaders who want to help their organization get to sold out status. I'm Kay, the marketing coordinator here at Above Promotions. For those joining us for the first time, we cover tools, innovations, policies, and strategies each month to help brands sell out products or reach capacity with your booked services. Our last episode discussed preparing for the holiday marketing campaigns and community events with our CEO, Ebony Vaz. If you missed it, please visit our YouTube channel to replay the dynamic conversation. For today, we will discuss communication, the key to a great cybersecurity program. We will be joined by Ebony Voss. She is the founder and CEO of Above Promotion and one of the few marketers in the world with an engineering degree and published research focused on human behaviors and statistical data. Hi, Ebony.
Hi, Kay. Thanks for bringing us together. I'm very excited about today and our special guest.
Me too. So, here our special guest is Larry Whiteside Jr., a highly experienced cybersecurity expert and C-level executive with more than 25-year career spanning various industries, including the Department of Defense, the federal government, finance, healthcare, and critical infrastructure. He currently serves as the CISO for Regscale, focusing on innovative compliance solutions. Additionally, Larry is the co founder, president, and board member of Cyversity, a nonprofit dedicated to increasing diversity in cybersecurity. He is a renowned thought leader and speaker with a strong background in advising corporate security executives and presenting at major industry conferences. Larry holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science from Houston Tillotson University. Hi, Larry.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. We're so glad to have you here.
I am super happy to be here and I appreciate the invite.
You know, your bio says BS in computer science, but I feel like it should be like PhD in wisdom because I follow your walk and talks with Larry. That's what I call him. I don't know what the official name or, but I'm going to give you that honorary PhD degree, sir.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's interesting because you say that, and I've had a number of conversations with people over my career who have, I'll say, gone down the path of going and getting multiple degrees in an effort to think that that's the thing that's going to make them successful. And I do believe in education. I think education is a crucial component of being successful in cyber, among many other things. But it doesn't always have to be a degree, right? Degrees are hard, degrees are expensive, and degrees are timely, right? It takes a lot of time to get a bachelor's and a master's and PhDs, and nothing against people who have them, but I try and tell everybody, don't look at other people's path and think that that's going to be your path as well. Everybody's got to figure out what their particular path is and what's going to work for them. So
exactly. That preaches. Let's
Right.
pass the collection plate.
Okay. So, Larry, how critical is effective communication within the cybersecurity team and across different organizational departments?
Oh, it's critical to executive success, and this is holistically across anything, but more so in cybersecurity because cybersecurity, we grew up as part of tech, right? But at the end of the day, cybersecurity is both a technical and business imperative. And so when you are a cyber executive, if you cannot find a way to communicate the things that you need to appropriately and effectively across the organization, and that means to your team, where the team has to understand from a strategic standpoint, here are the things that I need to do, and help me build the technical and process-based components to support that strategic thing. And then from a business perspective, helping them understand based on your strategic plan, what are the things and how is it going to impact them and what do you need from them? So communicating those things, getting buy-in, getting understanding so that everybody's on the same page is the only way that you can move forward.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny. I talk to a lot of business owners and executives, and they're all like, you know, when we tell them that we help with crisis communications for cybersecurity incidents and help be a part of like the incident response team, et cetera. And they're like, oh, you do business continuity. So that's just it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, not quite.
Right.
And they're like, oh, it's the same thing. I'm like, well, you know, if you have a cyber attack, the mode of communication that you normally have that might be down or compromised.
Right.
You know, you
Right.
might want to send an email to your IT team and the threat actor is still acting on behalf of your IT team. So it's completely different. I don't
Right.
think you can lump it all together. So
No.
it's kind of hard to get people to really grasp that it's not just a business continuity thing, that there's some critical differences between how you react to like a hurricane versus a crisis or a cybersecurity incident.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, right? I've had this conversation a number of times as it relates to incident response, right? So people have for years intertwined incident response and DRBCP.
Mm,
And while they can be coupled depending on the incident, they also have their unique nuances and differences, right? And from a cyber perspective, right, you may have a cyber incident that doesn't require BCP, that doesn't
mm-hmm,
require, right, like it doesn't require that because of the nature of what the incident is. And
mm-hmm,
so a lot of people have to understand that. You also have to understand that a cyber incident can actually impact your ability to recover and do disaster recovery. It can impact
mm-hmm,
your ability to do for your business continuity plan. Like those things can be directly impacted by a cyber event, and so you have to walk through what are the other things that you would do. But if you just think, well, I'm good because I've got a DRBCP plan, no, because cyber-based incidents really scan so broadly it could
yeah.
directly impact the things that you would typically in a normal everyday scenario
Mm-hmm,
utilize based on an IT or business based incident.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. As a leader in the executive suite who has to relate to colleagues and board members, what is your top communication tip for those looking to drive home and implement tools and communications company wide?
Yeah, so for me, communicating with those outside of the tech field inside an organization is really all about speaking their language. And I tell people this, and I say this a lot. Uh, when I get into an organization, the number one thing I begin to do is foster relationships, right? So when you talk about 30, 60, 90s, everybody, you go into a role as an executive, first thing they're asked for is what's your 100-day plan, what's your 30, 60, 90, whatever that is, right? And for me, the number one thing is to establish relationships with leaders across the organization. The reason for that, and that includes board members, that includes reaching out to try and have 15-minute touch bases with members of the board of directors, members of the audit committee, right? Because what this does is it gives you an opportunity to ask them questions to help determine where they were, what's their understanding of cyber, and what language do they communicate in, what's their level of understanding that you can communicate in, right? So that when you do start to communicate your strategy, when you do have to communicate to the board about status of your program, when you do have to work with your peers and other business colleagues across the business, you understand their drivers, right? And I like to use this one thing, especially for internal executives and colleagues across the business. If you know how they are paid, you know what matters for them. Now, what do I mean by that? That means, right, everybody works for a check, right? We get that, right? Everybody works, you get paid your salary. But for the in most organizations, there's some sort of bonus structure at the executive level that they are working towards, right? So if they hit a target number up, I've got a business unit that's $100 million, and our goal this year is 125 million. We want a 25% increase, right, in our revenue. Well, what are the things they're going to have a strategy to enable that, right? Well, you need, as a cyber leader, you need to understand what that strategy is, and you need to be able to communicate with them how you can help enable it. Those things, that type of communication, helping them understand how you are going to A, put more money in their pocket, and B, make them better at what they do, directly begins to foster what I like to call connective tissue with them. So they then, when you are communicating with them, and you're communicating in terms that you now understand resonate with them, you're going to get better response. They're actually going to read the things you're sending out, and you're going to get input when you ask questions.
I like what you said there. In terms of knowing the internal working and what motivates them is very crucial. And I know that oftentimes being for us, we often will help organizations determine like their marketing tech stack and stuff like that. And sometimes when those directives come for that increase in revenue, it's got to come somewhere, right? And so sales is like, in order to do that, now I need all these tools. And so we're going to go out here and we're going to buy like 5 different tools. They're going to be data scraping tools. They're going to be intent data. They're going to be all types of tools so we can use to put in place. And then at some point down the line, when something happens or something's not connected, do they notify the IT department? And then at that point, it's realized and brought to light like, hey, you do know that this company is operating off of servers within a country in which, things aren't so well there. And so you might not have wanted to have picked that solution because now all of our customer data and our internal data are exposed. So I love that you brought to light the fact that you really do have to understand what motivates the interests of those departments in order to know how to help them and to relay the importance of, getting the right tools and implementing right policies company-wide.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so incidents are often accompanied by panic and confusion. So, could you provide some insights into how a well established communication plan can help these organizations respond to and recover from cybersecurity incidents?
Yeah, so this is actually a really good question. This my statement to this is practice, right? So many organizations think that, well, I've never had a cyber incident. It's not something I need to think about. Or I've got to the point that we talked about earlier. I've got a DRBCP plan, so that's going to focus on that's going to enable us to respond to it. But they don't understand the nuances, and so having good communication plans set up front helps. But the only way that you will know that you need those is as you start walking through scenarios, because one of the things with cyber that sometimes impacts organizations that they don't think about is you've got reporting rules, right? So if you're a public company, SEC has come out with things. If you are a certain types of banks, a community bank, right? So they've come out with things like there's a number of different regulatory bodies that have come out and said you need to report within a certain amount of time. HIPAA requires you to report within a certain amount of time, right? Based on the number of records. So you've got these nuances, right? If an application goes down, if something breaks that impacts patient care and the healthcare, it's not necessarily a reportable incident that you then have to go to the federal government and report. However, if you have 500 records or more that are accessed by someone that you shouldn't, that's a reportable incident. So understanding the nuances associated with cybersecurity incidents and doing walkthroughs to understand what those things are and figuring out when do I need to contact outside counsel? When do things need to be privileged? When do I need to get and fly in what I like to call the helicopter team or the incident response team? Do I have an incident response retainer in place for cyber incidents? Because, as part of a regular technology DRBCP plan, they don't typically have incident response teams that they're dealing with, right? They have some sort of recovery mechanism for that piece of technology, but they don't have people who are experts at recovery of data. They don't have experts who know how to figure out how to get encryption keys. They don't have expert negotiators for ransomware, right? That's all part of this other thing that comes with a cyber incident. So walking through different scenarios as an organization, at least once a year, my recommendation is always doing it quarterly. And that means both operationally walking through it, but also as an executive team. It is important that the board of directors and the executive leadership team of every organization understands their roles when cyber incidents happen. Because depending on the incident, your roles might be different, right? Your roles might be different. Who you have to communicate may be different, right? I know an organization where a CISO friend of mine basically was asked a question by his board of directors: how do we get ahead of the news leaking that we had a cyber incident? And he was like, wait, what? Right? Because but that's was their expectation. So now he had to come up with a mechanism by which they communicated with their local news sources, right? To ensure that they had somebody that they could contact and call when something happened at a certain time, that they could give their side of the story of what happened in the proper way, versus letting it leak, hit somewhere else, and now the story comes out in a way that the organization thinks is going to be damaging to them, right? But that's not something you think about every day, right? So it's important to go through and practice the nuances, and honestly, let the headlines lead you, right? When you see different organizations that get popped by data breach, right? Use that as your next quarterly, right, tabletop, right? Take that, hey, this just happened with such and such company ABC. In our tabletop, right, this quarter, we're going to walk through that incident and figure out what are the things that we would have to do. Because in all likelihood, especially if the organization is in a similar vertical, but just in general, when you see breaches happen, typically there is some form of that is then going to also be repeated somewhere else. So if you take that scenario and you utilize it as a talking point for your organization to figure out, well, how would we deal with this, right? So it's just like, I cannot stress that level of communication and communicating with the ELT and the board of directors enough, because in this world of incident response, we've unfortunately for a long time focused on the operational ability to respond, and not this executive level who sort of sit, and I don't want to call them ivory towers, but they sit in the offices thinking that, okay, the tech people are going to deal with this incident and then the CISO is going to tell us what to do. That's not how this works. You need to know, because there's so many actions that have to be done at the executive level simultaneously to the tech teams figuring out everything that's going on.
I want to, it's like muscle memory, right?
Yep.
So the more you do something, the more you automatically jump into whatever role that you need to. And I'm going to tell you two things that I thought were funny that someone said to me this year. One, someone said, well, these tabletop exercises take too long. And I asked, how often do you do them? They're like, once a year. I'm like, well, if you did them more than once a year, you would get them down, the time frame down a lot, like, more condensed.
Exactly. Right.
And then someone was talking about, like, our IT guy said that, CISA and Department of Homeland Security and the FBI said that they'll work with us if anything like happens. And I'm like, wait, first of all, they kick into gear when it's like you're a federal government team, contractor, or you're part of critical infrastructure. Right. But if that's not it, regardless, they're not going to do the heavy lifting for you.
Nope. Nope. Your business is not their business.
It's not their business.
It's not their business. They are there to support for those who don't know how, right? But they are just support. They've got other priorities. They've got other things. They like, seriously? Oh man.
Yeah, that was a moment of like, oh, let me not spit this drink out my mouth because you just said this.
Right. But there is that. It is shocking to hear that from people, because they truly believe, well, I can just call the federal government, right? Because don't get me wrong, like first off, you got to have a relationship with your local FBI office, period, point
Yes.
blank. Like if you don't know who that person is and don't have like their number in your phone that you
Yes.
can call at a moment's notice, right? Then you're failing already. But
Yes.
let's say you do understand that they are one, or that your company is one of probably hundreds in your region. So if you think that they're going to put all their horses on deck when you have an incident, that's just not the case, and it's just not logical. So you
Yeah.
have to understand that yes, they're going to come in and they're going to ask for certain information, but their expectation is that you've done some very basic things.
Very basic.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank, thank you for giving such great examples. Do you see AI as beneficial in communications of cybersecurity incidents or training?
I do. AI is here to stay, right? Let's just be very clear about that. Um, uh, I'll deal with this in two components. So on the training side, AI absolutely is going to be valuable in training because it can come up with, it can change scenarios based on answers, right? And so I think that as companies that are building these training tools begin to utilize AI more to create better nuanced situations based on answers versus what we've dealt with historically, where everything is pretty static when you go through these trainings, where it's like, okay, A, and then you go to B, and then you go to C. Right now, they can say, well, because you said this phrase in A, we're going to go to D. How are you going to respond now? Because this nuance, because um, threat actors aren't binary, right? They are very nuanced. They can go all over the place, and so you can have two exact A scenarios of which the threat actor then responds anywhere from B to Z, right? And so I think AI is going to be wildly beneficial in that, to get people to start thinking more broadly as it relates to how to respond to incidents. On the other side, as it relates to cyber and incident response as a whole, there's some value in it. I haven't figured out what that value is. I know there are a number of organizations that are utilizing AI in different ways, and there's some startups that are coming up that are utilizing AI in their incident response functions for cloud. And what they're doing is they're actually looking at the nuance of what is normal, and allowing AI to take some basic pivots based on abnormalities and things it's seeing. So I know there's definitely use for it, and just from the pure look at AI across the landscape, the number one thing with that use is going to be how good are we as an industry, or our organizations individually, able to protect these data sets, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
AI is only as smart as the data that is being fed. And so as
Mm-hmm.
we're creating all of these different data sets across companies, across industries, and across all these different things, how good are we going to be at preventing data poisoning that will then cause AI to do things outside the scope of what we want it to do?
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna ask a question here, because I've been, I don't know, if it's just marketing that's happening, but I've noticed that some organizations that typically would work in um, like data processing fields or et cetera, they're saying how they are now using AI to protect data. And so for one, for me and on the marketing side, for research that we do, that's a concern for us. And if someone pays us to do market research and we're doing online, are we getting authentic, genuine people answering? And so we've had to kind of revert to having some other human
Yep,
checking capabilities to ensure that humans are completing the surveys.
yep.
But on the other end, again, I'm seeing these companies are pop up. So is it just, some words that they're using to say that they're using AI to protect the data sets, and they're just doing the regular things that they're normally doing? Is it just marketing speak, or are there actually solutions out there doing that?
So there is a lot of marketing hype around AI, right, and machine learning, um, but with the creation and sort of pushing of generative AI, it's given examples of how to build models that people
Mhm.
are now utilizing and following, to sort of protect their own, right? Um, just because of the generative AI's ability to learn. But again, it's based on what you feed it. And so I know there's research going on. I've run into a couple of companies that had started going down that path. I didn't dig into the tech because, again,
Mhm.
utilizing AI to protect, right, is a data set is a real new area for me.
Mhm.
And so but it's coming, like, to be very, very clear, it's coming. So I
Mhm.
don't think it's one of those, like, we're going to get on the train,
Yeah.
whether we choose to or not. And that means we're either going to pay attention to it and try and make sure we understand it, or people are going to be doing it without us knowing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Many organizations need help with conveying the importance of cybersecurity to employees. What strategies or practices can organizations employ to communicate the significance of cybersecurity to all the staff members effectively?
Yeah, so this is the fun one I like talking about all the time, because there is nothing that resonates more to someone than something impacting their own personal life. Period. Full stop.
Mhm.
Meaning, when you talk about, right, oh, we've got to do cyber awareness training. Nobody likes cyber awareness training. To be very clear, we've been doing cyber awareness training for 20 plus years. Nobody likes doing it. And I don't think anybody ever will. And there are tons of cyber security awareness training companies that have been developed that are doing it differently. They've gamified it. They've done all these different things to make it fun. And it's light years more fun than it used to be. However, it's still somewhat time consuming, right? It's taking time away from doing something else, right? And typically, because you're doing it while you're at work, you've got other work stuff you need to get done, and you don't have time to do that, right? As an executive, I've got back to back to back to back to back to back to back, and I could go on forever with just meeting on top of meetings. So, so what happens is people just rush through it. So for me, and what I've found, and this is through polls and exercises, the thing that resonates most is relating it to people's everyday life,
Mhm.
right? If it's something that they can go tell their children or their parents or their grandparents, right? They remember it. If it's something that you talk about and you give to them that shows how it impacts their ability outside of the workplace to just live and be an everyday person, they will remember it.
Yeah.
Because as much as we work, and as much as you may love your company and love your organization, everybody's got a life outside of their company. And that is why a lot of us, that's why we work. We work to get paid to create a lifestyle for this thing that we love, whether it's your family, whether it's whatever it is outside of work. Well, if something were going to negatively impact that, right, through, like, you would be losing your mind,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, wait, what? That would what? That would stop me from gaming? Wait, what? Right? That would stop me from being able to do this, right? My car would what? So applying it to someone's daily life is the number one thing that I've always worked down, to ensure that it resonates and people sort of keep it front of mind versus, oh, there's this thing that I had to do at work.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. I completely agree. Well, thank you, Larry. We really appreciate this and you joining us and all of your insights and giving us some of your talks. And it didn't sound like you were walking with us today, but
No, I did not walk today.
but thank you for your wisdom. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So, we've learned a lot from this last session today. So, thank you so much, Ebony and Larry, for sharing great insights with us. So, looking at my notes, we were able to talk about the critical how critical effective communication is within the organization, how to foster better communication and understanding within the organization. So, we hope this discussion has been helpful and that we have equipped you with a better understanding of the importance of having a great cybersecurity program. Check out our website for a free resource and see if you are cybersecurity ready. Also, follow Larry on LinkedIn for more of his great insights. We also want to thank those that tuned in. If you joined us late, do not worry. We will have this recording available on our website, abovpromotions.com. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, you missed a couple of these upcoming opportunities or events. So join Larry Whiteside and Ebony Vaz at the Cyversity Conference October 29 to 31 in Orlando, Florida. Visit www.cyversity.org for more information. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay.